in this film. He gets very drunk, still driving around. It's the
Yeah, they
70s.
took drink driving a lot more lightly in the 70s.
But the next morning, just a pile of beer cans by the door. So that's not everything he drank. That's just what fell out of the car when he opened the door. So there could be more in the car.
And this is a film that he did not want to do. He didn't want to be in it, but it got him out of some other obligations, and that's kind of an interesting story also. Did you read about that?
I've heard about that. Yes.
Yeah, I was not aware of it, that he was actually scheduled to play the part that Robert De Niro plays in The Deer Hunter.
Yes.
And he wanted out of it because he and the director apparently did not get along, and it was going to be, he had an obligation to the studio to make 3 pictures, and they said, well, if you do the sequel, which he had resisted doing, even though he was contractually obligated to do it, we'll release you from the other 3 pictures. And he said, okay. But he did commit.
Yes, absolutely.
To doing the best job he could.
Like he was in really good. He's in great shape for the role. I don't know if he got into shape for the role, because there's a scene where he's just shirtless, or with the shirt undone. But he looks like he's bronzed to a dark teak finish from from Island Life. He's a real. He looks the part, and he's fantastic in it. And he's not just showing up, saying his lines, and calling it a day, as I felt with on last week's film, Bait. Julian McMahon was the main actor from that one, and he just didn't want to be there, it seemed. Whereas Scheider is fully committed, and all credit to him.
Oh, I was wondering if you guys were going to do Bait. It's always a fun one.
Bait, I really enjoyed Bait. Sharks in a supermarket,
yes,
and it delivers.
Lower half on aisle 3.
Indeed. What I was missing was a scene of just the shark pushing a trolley around, just going around the aisles with a trolley in its mouth. But hey ho, kind of everything. I've been a little bit too silly even for that film. I enjoy all of the 70s nostalgia touches. I like that they're playing Pong on their TV in the Brody household. That's my grandparents still have that system. I've played that version of Pong. I don't remember sitting that close to the TV, but I've played that version. I like the arcade all of the kids are at in the evening. It's just these nice little nostalgic touches of a time I didn't necessarily live through, but I can still appreciate, and we get to see now. That's nice.
Well, I as we've talked about before, I did live through it. I had some of those haircuts. I never had the perm cut that some of these kids had, but I did have the shag type of cut a couple of times, like Keith Gordon has in the film.
Yes.
And the idea that everybody's getting together to party, and the kids are all, they're just being teenagers. I thought that seemed to me to be very realistic. The way that they would pair up a little bit on the boats, people would, if you were in a group like that, sometimes you'd hang with your close friends, sometimes you'd end up with somebody else that you knew and were slightly friendly with, and you always hoped that if you ended up with a different girl that she liked you. and that's kind of the way things were in the movie too. Although that romance stuff, nothing happens there because the damn shark's after them.
Damn sharks.
It's hard to be aroused when somebody's screaming all the time, and that there's a lot of screaming in this movie.
There is. I mentioned earlier that the cousin Jackie, Donna Wilkes, she's like this dream girl. When she appears, all the guys all the same as the rest. I don't know if they just did like a scream audition, and they got all of the girls in the film to scream, and they said, "You've got the best one," because she screams a great deal.
Yes.
She has a full mental break at the end of the film, as indeed does Tina, halfway through. So, yeah. So, well, on the subject of the couples having romantic meetings on the boats, the only two that kind of get anywhere are Tina and Eddie, and it does not go well for them.
No, it doesn't.
This is almost, I don't know if there have been previous horror or horror adjacent films where teenagers have sex, get killed. But if there weren't, then this is the starting point.
This is the precursor to the Friday the 13th movies.
Exactly. Yes.
Before this, it was just sex and no death, and after this, death was always required.
Indeed. Yeah, this is the first time people died, mid or post coitus. Good, excellent.
Keep your blanket on the sand, not in the ocean.
And when we were talking about the jet ski death, the lady driving the boat looked very familiar to me, but turns out she hasn't really been in other things. I think she's just credited as a ski boat driver. She's a lady called Jean Coulter. She looked incredibly familiar. I realised it's because she looks almost identical to Lorraine Gary, but also she's done a lot of stunt work. Like, she did stunts in the Blues Brothers. She was the stunt fill-in for Farrah Fawcett in Charlie's Angels series. Wonder Woman, she did stunts. She's done a lot of stunts in her time.
That's probably why she was cast in that part. You know,
Yes,
it's basically a part for a stunt woman, so let's have her do it, and then we won't hire a separate actress. We don't need a separate actress. She can do it.
If a stunt person to pour gasoline on themselves and burn.
She was apparently the Zoe Bell of the 70s, huh?
Indeed, yes. Excellent.
Oh, we don't have a death per se, but we do have a severe injury from diving.
Oh, when they go for the lobsters.
Yes.
Yeah, they got the diving team for yes.
There's a phrase for it, and I'm missing it. You know, the barometric breathing or something like that, where something goes wrong and the guy goes up.
He gets an embolism.
Much too fast. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Well, he also gets. I thought he got bitten by the shark because there seems to be a plume of blood following him up as he goes up, but apparently not. He just panicked and rushed to the surface too quickly and got a brain embolism, so he can't then tell them there was a shark, which is very convenient, I thought.
If you need to have a brain embolism in a convenient spot, that was it. You know, because it prevents you from revealing the truth of the story and defeating the whole plot that nobody believes, Brody.
Yes, indeed. Because it's not. I mean, he only gets confirmation when they find Tina in her boat. Eddie not there anymore, and she's paralyzed with fear. She's cut up into a ball in the little crawl space of the boat.
Stutters out shark.
Eventually, it takes a while for her to go, and then she screams shark. And that's the first time that anybody other than him is like, oh, good, there's a shark here. And that's 20 minutes left in the film, if that.
Yeah. But I like the scene on the diving boat when they're all going down for the lobsters, and we know that there's going to be, shark activity in this. And I think that they build that pretty well. But I did look up something because it was kind of interesting in relationship to this. The way they all go off of the diving boat,
backwards.
They all backwards. I had always heard, somebody told me, and I just believed what they said, and I never looked into it, that this was just something that was invented by Sea Hunt. Lloyd Bridges thought it looked dramatic on television, and then everybody started doing it after that. And I thought, well, that seems kind of silly. But when I looked it up, there's a real reason that they do that, and it makes perfect sense. But if I was going in the water and I was worried about sharks, I don't think I'd go backwards.
So, what is the reason?
Well, you do it for 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, it's less likely to create a problem for your equipment. The equipment is safer going in that way. You don't want to create too big a splash that bounces the boats. If you're in a small boat, especially like an inflatable, that could be a potential problem. So going off backwards is safer. It keeps your equipment in the right spot. It's also easier on the body, apparently, because obviously all of your tank and your equipment takes the hit on the water instead of like if you were doing a belly flop or just jumping in feet first. There is a weird kind of jump that people do going in the water where it looks like they're kind of splitting their feet and leaping off, but you do that off of bigger boats as opposed to a lower boat. So it keeps the boat stable. It protects your equipment and your back. and it wasn't invented by Sea Hunt.
Fair enough. I think I'd assumed. I don't know if you've ever done those kind of high climbing woodland adventure things. They're called Go Ape in the UK, where it's like a treetop adventure kind of thing with platforms and ropes and whatnot. But the ones here, they all tend to end with, they all involve like they call it a Tarzan swing into a big net, where you just you're strapped onto something above, you grab hold of a rope and you just kind of swing, and there's no danger because even if you let go of the rope, you're still tied to the rope. But you have to like step off of a platform and free fall, it feels like, into a net. And I love doing those whole. I went on my stag do involved one of these kind of treetop things. I loved it. But I hate the bit where you step off the platform because it just feels so wrong. It feels like I mean, I can do it, but the first few times I did it, I have to like sit on the platform and kind of push myself off like a child going down the stairs, kind of thing. But I didn't know if them going backwards made it easier to do. Like it takes that kind of gut wrench not out of your stomach that you're not just jumping off of a boat into the water. I think that's what I'd always assumed it was, but apparently not. So good. It's all scientific and equipment based. Excellent.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be up for stepping off the plane either if you were doing skydiving.
No, definitely not.
That's another one of those things you look at it and say, "Why would I do this? This is the worst thing in the world to be doing."
I love climbing around on rocks and things, as we talked about in The Descent a couple of weeks ago. But my wife's always been like, "Do you ever feel like going for a bungee jump or like going skydiving?" I was like, "No, I don't think I'd be able to do that." I imagine it would be a great experience to be up there going through the air and all that, but I think that literal first step, I don't think I could do it. So I'm good. The ground is my friend. I will stay here. I don't wish to meet it at great speed. So, you mentioned the shark earlier. There's a lot more shark in this film than the previous one, and it's because they've got a working model. I quite liked the model of the shark here. It looks, there's a big scarred head. You see at one point, actually the bit with the diver, the lobster catcher, is saying that it's just this giant scarred shark head. I imagine it's been scarred from the boat encounter.
The boat explosion. Yes. It's burned. It's scars from being covered with gasoline, but he's underwater, or she is underwater, unlike the driver of the boat, so survives the encounter with the flames.
Oh, when Brody finds the part of the boat and he flips it over, it's like just kind of bobbing in the water, and there's real trepidation about going in to get it. He flips over and there's just this burned corpse on there. That was incredible. That was the Ben Gardner's head moment of this.
Yes,
film. Yeah,
that was a good moment. And another one of those ones where I remembered that there was a boat accident, but it wasn't a skiing accident in the book that was made. Like I said, this is all the stuff that was going on probably in the first draft. It was a question of whether or not it was a mob hit, and they were looking at that and saying, well, it's not a shark attack, it was a mob hit.
Yep. Okay.
So I don't know. I'm glad
classic mob hit on a jet ski, on a water ski.
And by the way, they did have a jet ski in the movie, and that's right after they'd had the jet ski, the sitting down water motorcycle in Spy Who Loved Me the summer before. This was like the next time that we saw this kind of equipment, and that equipment was finally available to the public. It wasn't just an experimental or in the beta stage. It was actually being sold to the public. But it's just a brief scene.
Yeah, it's when all the kids are having fun. They're at the beach and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, there's a water balloon fight on the little boats they're on, which you cannot fill a water balloon from the ocean.
No, you can't.
So they brought those with them. Or like took some kind of jug of water to fill them up with whilst they were out there, which commitment, I suppose. But yeah, so thank you for bringing up the jet ski. We always have to. They're Mark's favourite mode of transport, so we always have to bring them up whenever they're here. So thank you for ticking that off the list.
No problem. Check.
No jet skis in Deep Blue Sea though. It's our biggest gripe about the film, no jet skis. So speaking of the shark model, I really enjoyed the scene when they're on the tied together boats at the end and the shark comes and Mike gets knocked unconscious and he's like bobbing in the water and they're trying to get him back, there's two guys on a boat that's fully functioning, and they I don't